Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the show. This week, we're going to be talking through how I got off hormonal birth control. I did a Substack on this probably 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. And it got a lot of people interested in the topic, but then also coming back to it frequently. As you guys know, Natural Cycles is a sponsor of this show. So I thought it would be fun to kind of put audio to the Substack that I did and talk a little bit about what my approach was. Obviously, this is not medical advice. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm just someone who's really into my health and did a lot of research on this topic before I decided to pull the plug and get off hormonal birth control. So I think the best place to start would be if I gave a little bit of background in terms of my use of hormonal birth control. Then we'll talk about sort of like what I did to prepare my body. And then from there, like actually making the move, what to look for afterwards, how I supplemented, my diet, etc. So let's dive in. So I started hormonal birth control for the first time when I was, you guys are gonna jaw drop at this, although maybe not, because I feel like this was kind of the norm back then, when I was 14. And it wasn't because I was like having sex or anything like that. It was because all of my friends were getting on it and they were talking about how good they felt, how their acne went away. And obviously when you're 14 and a girl, well, honestly guys too, but you're going through so many hormonal swings, you basically hate your body. At least I did. Hate the way I looked. It was like, I wouldn't say I was super insecure, but I was like, it could be better, you know? So I hear all this through my girlfriends that like birth control is the thing to do. And I beg my mother, like beg her to get on the pill. And as many of you guys know, or maybe some of you don't, my mom is very crunchy. Like she is OG crunchy. I grew up in like a very granola household and she was so vehemently against it. Like, absolutely not. We're not doing that. Like, please no, whatever. And I just kept bothering her about it. And then I got my first boyfriend. And again, it wasn't like I was having sex or anything, but I think she got nervous that I was asking her about it so much that finally she was like, you know what, whatever, fine. So I got on, I believe it was Yaz. I want to say it was the pill. And I started it, I think when I was at that point, I was 15 or 16, or maybe even 17. No, I was 15. And I got on it and I had a terrible reaction. I think I genuinely took it for 2 weeks and then I was like, yeah, I'm good on this. I broke out in more acne, like just did not feel like myself, felt bloated, weight gain, all of the things. So I ended up getting off of it. Then I went to college and I, again, kind of was like, should I be on birth control? Like, it seems like everybody's doing it. It seems like the normal thing to do. And to be honest, at this point, I wish that my mom would have sat down and like taught me how to track my cycle, which like no harm, no foul to her, obviously. I was away in college in DC. She lived in the Midwest. So there wasn't really much that she could do, but I think I didn't realize that I had options, there's so many different things that you can do as a woman to really understand your body. So I decided after seeing my OB-GYN in DC, I decided to get on an IUD. And that was like the hot, new-ish method of birth control at the time. And I actually didn't get on a hormonal, I'm putting that in quotes, hormonal form of an IUD. I went on Paragard, which is the copper IUD. So they market this a lot as the non-hormonal IUD. I don't really see it that way, to be honest, because the method of action for Paragard is that it creates inflammation in your uterus. Obviously, the IUD is placed into your uterus. It creates inflammation so that if you were to, in theory, if you were to get pregnant, you would have a miscarriage because it wouldn't be a habitable place for a baby to grow. So I get on this Paragard IUD, and actually the story behind that is really wild. I was, again, a freshman in college, and my OB-GYN basically told me, you know, IUD placement can be really painful. So they prescribed me what I thought was a Xanax or something to take before. I did not understand what they were giving me. And it was actually misoprostol, which is used for two things in the modern zeitgeist: abortions and also inducing labor, which is crazy that that drug is used for both of those things. It's like jaw-dropping crazy. So they prescribed me this pill. I thought it was totally innocuous. Again, I thought I was like taking a Xan. So I was like, okay, I'm like going to just be really relaxed, which at this point in my life, I would never take either of those things, obviously, unless I absolutely had to. But I think I was really nervous. I hadn't really had like any super painful experiences before then. So I was just pretty nervous about the whole experience. I take what I thought was a Xanax in the dining hall of my college, and I go to the bathroom and I start bleeding and throwing up. And I was like very, very unwell. I'm like in cold sweats. I'm like sitting in this bathroom stall being like, what is going on? Freaking out. I call my best friends who are sitting at the table in the dining hall. They come in to get me. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Like something's not right. And then I start having contractions because I wasn't pregnant, obviously. And I took this pill. And so I'm just like in a state, as you can imagine. So they put me in an Uber, take me to my OB-GYN's office, and they put me up on a table and examine me, obviously. And it turns out that I was 5 centimeters dilated from this pill. And they tell me that. I start throwing up again, obviously, because I'm so horrified, and calling my mom. My mom is freaking out, like about to get on a plane to DC, whatever. They're like, listen, we obviously cannot place the IUD today, but we can do it for you tomorrow. Our recommendation is like, we're actually going to prescribe you Xanax now, which obviously I did not take. But they're like, you need to go home and get some rest. Like, this has been a traumatic experience, whatever. I think at the time, like my parents were basically like, we could very much sue this OB-GYN's office because there was no informed consent whatsoever. Decided obviously not to do that. But I ended up getting the IUD placed the next day, which in hindsight, in comparison to the mess that happened the day before, was completely painless. So I have that IUD for 9 years. I think it's less than that, 6 years, 7 years. And you know, it's fine. It makes your periods really painful. It's like, I wouldn't say, I mean, none of these things are great, right? In terms of what they do to your body, which we're going to dive into, and sort of like all of the inflammation, both systemically and locally, that these things cause. It's not a good situation. But as many of you know, I ended up getting pregnant on that IUD. So if a pregnancy wants to survive, you know, what's it going to do? It's going to move, right? It knows that it cannot survive in the uterus. So it moved it to my fallopian tube. And that ended up being a huge health scare and a really big problem. And I think, again, it's a mess, because I don't know if when I was 18, if I would have been told, oh, there's a possibility of an ectopic pregnancy. Like, if you get pregnant, you have a high chance of this pregnancy being ectopic. I don't know that I wouldn't have gotten the IUD, but I had no idea that that was possible. I didn't even know what an ectopic pregnancy was when I was 18 years old. So it was just a very scary situation. And again, many of you guys know the entire story around that, so we won't get too in depth with it. But the point is that after the ectopic pregnancy, and I had a surgery on my tube, in that surgery, they removed the IUD. So all of this was happening during my cancer diagnosis experience. And so it was like kind of a 1-2 punch, really scary. They found the ectopic pregnancy when I was having surgery on my brain. And it was a very, again, just like, talk about riding the wave of like trauma, but also just all the things that come with a scary diagnosis. As a result, when I got sick with cancer and I froze my eggs, as many of you guys know, I, after that, went on a drug called Lupron. And this is not technically birth control. I put that in quotes, but it does, the method of action is that it stops your body from ovulating. And the reason why is because chemotherapy, which I had a lot of, targets rapidly dividing cells. And obviously, you're releasing an egg every single month. Eggs mature over time. They are a really good example of rapidly dividing cells. So if you can kind of shut down your ovulation, that gives your body a chance of actually preserving that because the chemotherapy isn't targeting it. At least that's how I understand it. So they put you into what's called a medical menopause with this drug Lupron. You quote unquote cannot get pregnant on it. I know some people who have had that experience, but it shut down my ovulation and was a huge dose of hormones that were going into my body. If some of you guys have probably heard of the drug Lupron, it's very much in the pop culture, well, not pop culture, but like in the cultural zeitgeist right now because it's used a lot in transgender, like transitioning from, I believe, male to female. They start using it as hormone therapy. And it's a really brutal drug. Like when I tell you my hormones were a wreck, I was basically in menopause. So I would have terrible hot flashes. Every single thing that you can think of that is a symptom of menopause, I had, which is wild to think about at 25 years old. But after that, and you obviously don't have a period. So after that, I got off Lupron and it took a year for my cycle to come back. And after that, I was like, I am done. I am done with all of this. There has to be a better way. I know there is a better way. And so it was kind of a natural transition for me. It wasn't like, I just have to stop taking the pill and then, I'm good to go. It was like, I'm done with this drug and now I'm just going to let my body come back to homeostasis. So again, it took a year, and that year of like weaning off the symptoms was pretty brutal, as you can imagine, because it is a really high dose drug and, like I said, a very serious drug. But after that, I was home free and I learned so much about my cycle. It led me to utilizing natural cycles, which we'll definitely talk about. And, all of the things that come with really learning about the rhythm of your body as a woman. Quick break to share about my favorite health up-level, Natural Cycles. If you haven't heard of Natural Cycles, it's the first FDA-cleared hormone-free birth control app, and I've been using it for years and loving it. Here's how it works. You take your temperature each morning with a basal thermometer, log it into the app, and it uses that data along with additional information about your cycle to tell you which days you're fertile. That's it. No hormones, no side effects, and it's backed by science and data that's personal to you and your cycle. I love how easy it is to use and how much I've learned about my body along the way. Whether you're looking for a hormone-free birth control option or you just want to better understand your cycle, Natural Cycles has you covered. Head to naturalcycles.com and use my code FEELWELLBYANNA for 15% off an annual subscription and a free Bluetooth thermometer. That's naturalcycles.com, code FEELWELLBYANNA. Natural Cycles is for 18 plus and does not protect against STIs. Always read and follow the instructions for use. For me, I was very specific about what I wanted to do from a detoxification perspective in order to sort of like rid my body of all these synthetic hormones, but also chemicals. I mean, you guys have to remember, I was coming off of 12 months. I mean, you don't have to remember, you probably, some of you don't know this, but I was coming off of 12 months of chemotherapy when I stopped taking Lupron. So not only was I trying to get the hormones out of my body, but I was really trying to get all of the toxic chemicals that come with chemotherapy and steroids and all of the drugs that you could prescribe to offshoot of those two, in order to like rid my body of those things. So I think it's important to say that there are some women who will come off of hormonal birth control, or, another synthetic drug of the like that impacts your hormones, and they'll have no problems. A month later, their cycle will return. They'll have no acne, no weight gain, no bloating, no symptoms of any sort of gut dysbiosis, which is really a large symptom of birth control and something that birth control totally masks. But they'll have it really easy. And if that is you, you are so lucky, and that's incredible, right? Like what an incredible testament to your health, to your body working the way that it should, and to your body not being encumbered by use of a serious drug. Like that's wonderful. But there will also be a subset of women who come off these drugs, and it takes a long time for your body to recalibrate. It takes a long time for your body to get back to homeostasis, to get back to feeling normal. And so for me, I was very understanding of the fact that I didn't know which one I was going to be. I ended up being the second one, right? It took a while for my body to get back to normal. But I wanted to give myself the best chance of being number one. And even if I wasn't, I wanted to try to mitigate all those symptoms as much as I could have. So it's important to note that hormonal birth control, it causes a number of different deficiencies. It depletes vitamins and minerals, and overall gut dysbiosis. So the most common hormonal birth control induced vitamin depletion or deficiencies are B vitamins, especially B6, B12, folate. It can also deplete vitamins C and E. So it's really important to focus on these both through food as well as supplementation. And then it will deplete minerals like magnesium, selenium, zinc, all minerals that we know are really important to fertility overall, right? Which isn't shocking, right? If you're taking a drug that is meant to make you infertile for a period of time, you're going to have depletion of the things that contribute to your fertility. I feel like that makes sense, right? So as a result, I wanted to eat a very nutrient dense diet, which is the way that I eat today, right? So high in animal protein, especially ruminant animals. So I'm talking beef, lamb, elk, bison, deer, venison, et cetera, organ meat, if possible, if you can eat it in its like whole form rather than desiccated in supplement form, kudos to you. It's really hard for me to get down. So oftentimes I'll use a desiccated form, such as I really like Heart and Soil. Fertile makes a good one. There's a bunch of brands that make really great desiccated organ supplements. I did a lot of really high quality chicken and eggs. I now like the brand Primal Pastures. I get all of my chicken from there as well as all of my beef. Reason being, a lot of chicken is raised with synthetic hormones. It's raised with vaccines. It's fed corn and soy, which we know is not great for our health and inflammation. So be specific about how you're sourcing that, if possible, if it fits within your budget and lifestyle. High quality seafood is really nutrient dense and it's really helpful during this time. Again, like I mentioned, there's a huge depletion of things like zinc when it comes to utilizing hormonal birth control long term. So things like oysters that are so high in zinc can be really helpful for adding to your diet. High quality broths that are really mineral dense. I like chicken, beef. If you don't eat a lot of meat, or if you want to do experiment with something vegetarian, seaweed, specifically kelp and dulse, are really nutrient dense in terms of iodine, magnesium, all the things that we want to add back to our diet. Fermented foods are a must because, like I said earlier, hormonal birth control depletes healthy gut bacteria, especially if it's prolonged use. And by prolonged use, I mean longer than 12 months, which most women are on birth control for longer than that, right? So yes, I know that there will be people who are thinking, should I just take a probiotic? Sure, probiotic is fine, right? There are great probiotic companies that make wonderful probiotics these days. Seed does a really good job. There's a lot of really good spore-based probiotics out there, but I like fermented foods way better than I like probiotics. And if you're taking a probiotic, I recommend pairing that with a fermented food. Sauerkraut, pickles, kimchi, kefir, these are all really good examples that should really be in your diet every single day, regardless of whether you're getting off birth control or just living day-to-day life. These are really good gut boosting foods that we should all be eating. And then an array of in-season ripe fruits and vegetables to help move digestion along and provide even more micronutrient density. When it comes to carbs, sourdough bread, sweet potatoes, regular potatoes, soaked ancient grains, white basmati rice, all of these things are wonderful. And then obviously a lot of healthy fats, including avocado, butter, beef tallow, olive oil, seeds, Greek yogurt are great. No alcohol. Obviously, no coffee is really best. And then very moderate sugar. So we want to make sure, because sugar can be really an attack to the gut as well. We want to be only doing things that are going to boost the gut. That's why I also say no alcohol and no coffee. Alcohol, is sterilizing to the gut. Think about it. Like when people have a wound in the wild, they pour alcohol on it to sterilize the wound. What do you think that's doing to your digestive system? So you have to think about it that way. And then, like I said, coffee, it's just really harsh and acidic on the stomach. So in terms of supplements that could be helpful, vitamin B, a B complex is really helpful, right? So it will help you get all of the B vitamins, but really with B vitamins, we want to make sure that we're taking an ideal amount of them. A lot of B vitamin supplements don't have enough in them to really make a difference, but not only that, they're not in a bioavailable form. So we really want to make sure that we're on top of that. Lipospheric, it's so hard for me to say that word, supplements are a wonderful option. I'll link some of my favorites in the show notes so that you have access to them. And then I also recommend a methylated form of folate, as you can imagine. So if you want to take like 5-MTHF, that's great. You could even take a methylated prenatal during this time. Not a bad idea, especially with nutrient depletion that's already, like, we can assume many women who have been on birth control. A prenatal is a great place to start. I'll link the ones below that I love, but my top are like, I think there's 4 of them: female formulations, Weenatal, Seeking Health, and Full Well. And I always get questions, what about this one? What about this one? That's my list for a reason. These are the best ones in terms of what has the most amount of nutrients and, palatable in terms of the amount of pills that you're taking. So like I said, a zinc supplement is always a great idea, especially if you're not getting it through food. Selenium, the best way to get selenium, which many of you probably already know this, is taking 2 raw Brazil nuts every day. Brazil nuts are really high in selenium. 2 is the perfect amount. Just snack on them while you're preparing a meal. And then I really like colostrum for gut fortification. So I know it's not necessarily a supplement. It's like actually a whole food. But I like Armra colostrum. I find that it's really high quality. Like, I really notice a difference for my gut health in general, immune health, etc., when I'm taking it. This probably seems like a lot. You don't have to take all of them. Like I said, a good way to do it is just take a prenatal, a really high quality prenatal, and then add in like colostrum, for example, or add in an omega is a great idea. But I'll put a few different ones and a few different supplements below that you can check out. When it comes to sort of getting hormonal birth control out of your system once you stop taking it, detoxification and opening your detox pathways is really important. So from a movement perspective, exercise is a non-negotiable. Movement in general, and just like living an active lifestyle. Walk, right? Walk 10,000 steps a day. I know is like the hot topic, and the best way to get that is 30 minutes in the morning, do some like activity, chores around your house, stuff like that in the afternoon, and then 30-minute walk at night. You will hit 10,000 steps easily every single day. But working out for me, like a walk, hot take alert coming in, a walk is not a workout. A walk is an activity. Unless you are like literally hoofing it down the street to the point where you are out of breath, I think a walk is a great form of activity. It's not exercise. So everyone should be lifting weights. Heavy weights are great, but just lifting weights to the point of failure, whether you decide to do that with light or heavy weights, is your business. But doing something that challenges your muscles in order to stimulate muscle growth is really important, just for everyone's health in general, like evergreen. And then sauna, right? If you can get into a sauna, it's a really great thing. If you don't have a sauna near you, you don't have one in your home, you don't have a place where you can go to use one, Higher Dose makes an incredible infrared sauna blanket. This is what I had at home for like 5 years probably, and used it almost every single day. I know it's holiday season. We're all going to be putting our gift lists together. That would be at the top of mine if I didn't have access to a sauna. It's an incredible tool to have at home. This is kind of a controversial one, but enemas or colonics can be really helpful during this time. I use enemas a lot when I had cancer, just to move things out of my body to clear the digestive system. The colon stores a lot of waste. Obviously, that's the function. But we also get backed up. So it's really important to release, to sort of move that waste out and to create circulation in your body to make sure that things are filtering through properly. Make sure that you get, if you're going to do a coffee enema, which can be great for liver detoxification specifically, make sure that you get enema grade coffee. You don't want like super caffeinated Starbucks coffee. That probably goes without saying, but I got to say it. And then sleep, right? Sleep is a massive detoxifier. It is incredible for moving toxic waste, toxic product out of the body. So 9 hours a night is really what we should all be aiming for. Some people are going to hear that and like be like, in what world? Which I get. I can be the same way sometimes, but also when you give up coffee, you're sleeping a lot more. So yeah, 9 hours is really best, but really the more important thing is setting a consistent sleep-wake cycle. So I know for myself, it can be hard because maybe one night I go to bed at 10 p.m. and I will wake up at 7, whereas maybe one day I'm good and I'll do 9 p.m., wake up at 6. But the more that you can be within like an hour of what your baseline is, the better, because it sets that circadian rhythm. It helps your body know when to wake up. It will help you, again, like have that internal alarm clock of like, oh, it's time to get up, or, oh, it's time to go to bed. Especially if you can set that with the sun rising and coming down. That's wonderful. And then in the same vein, really exposing your eyes to sunlight first thing in the morning. So I have massive windows in my room. I will just like open the shades. My husband is like, really this early? But I'll, open the curtains and the sun will be coming up. It's beautiful. And it's just really good for your body in general. Cool. I think the last thing I will say is that I know that this seems like a lot. And there, again, are a lot of people who are going to be able to come off hormonal birth control and have no problems. They're going to have a great experience. They're going to feel more like their self. They're going to feel more just like they've arrived in their body immediately. And then for some people, there's going to be a lag. And I was that. And I think leaning into controlling what you can control, to being on your game with your diet, with your lifestyle, with your detoxification, with your sleep routine, it's only going to benefit you going forward. I think we hear the quote all the time, or at least I've heard it many times, of like, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. I don't know if that's true. What I will say is that the way that you set up your health to move through a difficult time, or, a diagnosis, or what we're talking about today, getting off of a medication, or, when you have a baby, preparing your body for conception, all of those things, if you set your health up well, and if you set your routines up well, that only benefits you in the long term. So you can really take this and use it as a jumping off point for you to just be a healthy, thriving person. So that's my recommendation. I will also put a bunch of books in the show notes, not a bunch, but like 3 or 4, as well as some other podcasts that might be helpful for you to check out and listen to. I don't want to demonize hormonal birth control. I think that for some people, it is a solution that is helpful for them. I think for the majority of us, it is not. And it's a detriment to our health long term. And we end up distancing ourselves from the rhythm that is God given to us as women, that is innate to who we are as women, and can also provide us so much insight into the state of our health. So that is the episode. I hope this was helpful for you. I will see you guys next week for another episode. And if you like this, please rate, review, subscribe to the show, and I will talk to you soon.